Peter Fury, and don't forget to subscribe to Porky's Corner, because I've been a helmet of the month and you need to listen to me. Yeah? So follow him, yeah? And get the fella some followers up, for Christ's sake. He wears his heart on his sleeves, the good man Russ. So follow Porky's Corner, he says it as it is, and you know, I appreciate the helmet of the month, Russ. No problem.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, mate.
Hello, all you hardcores out there, how are you doing? It's Russ here from Porky's Corner. Got a treat for you. Julian's decided to come back to the pig pen. How are you doing, Julian?
I'm all right, yeah. Maybe you could call it a little mini comeback. I mean, I've only been away for a couple of weeks, but since I first came on, a couple of weeks been a long time. I'm all right, mate. I'm okay. Good man, good man. We'll dive straight in then, balls deep. Do you think a lot of people are saying Ian John Lewis were thrown at Wolves? What do you think? Listen, it's a little bit like remember Margaret Thatcher. I mean, I was dancing when it happened, to be honest, but when Thatcher eventually got stabbed in the back by the last of her cabinet and she exited Downing Street, she looked all wounded and all upset. And it's like Maggie did. It's like, what do you expect? Do you know what I mean? You mix with those kind of people. So if Ian John Lewis is walking around feeling a bit wounded and a little bit dejected, you're a referee for a shower of shite, let's be honest, board of no control. And what do you expect them to do? Do you expect them to back you all the way and support you? Or do you expect them to just throw it at Wolves and use you as a scapegoat? You can't dance with the devil and just complain when it doesn't go your way. So what did he expect from those lot?
Yeah, I know, yeah. Do you see a way back for him?
I guess it depends what he wants to do. If he's been demonized to some extent, hasn't he? Because he's the scapegoat. If you don't really understand how it works and you're a little bit fickle, you just point the finger at him and everybody else gets off scot-free. And I guess that's what happens with scapegoats. But he's got two choices, hasn't he? He'll either walk away feeling snubbed and feeling wounded, or do something else with the rest of his life. Because I hope that Ian John Lewis is a little bit like myself, in that boxing doesn't define him and he has life outside of boxing. Or he'll learn from it, and he'll be a little bit more careful when he's watching fights in future and come up with some more balanced scorecards, and obviously not make too many early calls in the ring. The only thing I will say about Ian John Lewis is he once refereed one of Sykes' title fights. I think it was the Carl Johansson fight, I forget. He refereed it really well. He let the action flow. So in terms of understanding what's going on in the ring, and as an ex-fighter, he's good in certain instances. I just think his judging's been very, very poor. Consistently poor. And some of the decisions he's made, stopping fights too early, has been equally as poor. So I don't know, maybe he's had his time in boxing, he's done it for a long time, and maybe it is time for him to do something else, actually.
Yeah, he rubbed a few up on it wrong way, you know, over years and that. You know, do you feel like they've had that many lives that they've used them all up, do you think? So, some of these refs and judges now, do you think?
100%, Russell, because we've said this previously. It's like every time you switch on, you go, oh, fucking hell, Terry O'Connor, here we go again. Steve Gray, here we go again. Oh, yeah. And it's like the same old faces. So we've got hundreds and hundreds and maybe thousands of professional active boxers in the UK and in Europe. And it seems like we've got these 4 or 5 referees, Howard Foster, Victor McLaughlin. It's like 5 or 6 A-star referees. I mean, what do you have to do to be an A-star referee? I mean, what does that even mean? You're either competent.
You've got to be a Freemason, haven't you? I mean, they've all had the fingers pricked, mate. It's a cult. It is a cult. That's what this is, a cult.
Oh, it's an absolute cult. And that's what I was saying. What do you have to be an A-star referee?
There needs to be riots. There needs to be riots over this. No, they don't really.
Well,
You think they would be, wouldn't you? If this was 16th century or something, I'd be leading riots all over the place over this.
well, it's a self-appointed, self-commissioned, self-regulated board, so they can basically do what the fuck they want. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, it's madness. How's Max doing?
Max is okay.
Next week, how's he? He's all right, doing well.
He's doing fine. You know, I just do a little bit of work with him, help him. Usually we do one session a week. We've done a couple of sessions over the last couple of weeks just to give him a bit of a boost. He's definitely learning and improving. Now, anybody listen, I'm not suggesting that is anything anywhere near the polished article. He's a kid who was 4-2 in white collar and he's 1-0 at a very, very low level professional boxing. But he's definitely improving. For someone who's 34 years old, who's never really been coached or shown anything at all, he's doing okay. He picks things up well. He's dropped a little bit of weight, not a lot, but a little bit of weight. He's got a good attitude. He's never late, and he soaks it up like a sponge. Whenever I'm showing him anything, he soaks it up like a sponge. So for me, it's not about Max winning professional fights, and it's not about Max winning titles. It's about Max being the best version of himself, and that's all. That's the only thing I'm interested in, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I imagine if Max got to 5-0. God.
He'd have an entourage, wouldn't he? He'd have an entourage behind him. You'd have to be one of them. You'd have to, you know, wear the Max Jenkins apparel.
Max Jenkins hoodies.
Honestly, it'd be ridiculous, wouldn't it?
It'd be like that, what's it called? David Howe. Do you remember him everywhere? I'm not going to go.
Yes.
He's a nice lad. He was turning up at Dennis's office. Like, what's going on here? Yeah, there were about 10 of them in matching tracksuits. He had nutrition guy, this and that, blah blah blah. And it were a bit bizarre. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? It's like
start gassing you up and that. Mark, well, not gas Max up too much, but if he gets to 5-0, good luck to you, Max. Not bother who you fight, mate. Would you go enjoy?
Doesn't matter. There's no joking in that ring. I don't care who you're boxing at what level.
Yeah.
We cannot turn around and say Max is fighting a kid who's 10 and 40 and they've just dug him up from crematorium or cemetery. We can't say that because Max has had, as I just said, he's got absolutely zero experience in boxing. So we can dig out these Olympians and these ABA elite champions for fighting these guys, but Max is actually fighting at a level he should be fighting at for at least 2 years. Good for him.
Yeah. Team Max.
He's a good lad, mate. He's a nice lad. I know he's Marmite, but there's no malice in him. When you know yourself, these people who give him stick, he loves it. He absolutely loves it. And
what do we think to his Buddy Holly haircut?
Someone else.
That's like a rock. Is that a rockabilly's job, isn't it? That is he are you a rockabilly, Max?
I don't know if it's just got put in a bit of volumizer, maybe, Max. Not that we can say anything, but you know what I mean.
I don't know. All right then. Conor Benn's putting himself about on social media because he's ranked number 5 across the board now in world, and you know he's talking fights with Josh Taylor and he'll fight Errol Spence and Crawford and that. What you think he could be heading for a disaster?
Depends if they keep matching him against these guys who haven't been in gyms for about 30 years.
Van Heerden, man, oh my God. Dug Van Heerden up, haven't they, for him?
I've got to be honest, and maybe I'm not hardcore. I've never heard of him before this fight. I've never seen him. I'm probably not as invested in boxing as I used to be. But, you know, good luck to him. But it's, like I said to you before, mate, it's like name association, isn't it? If I'm Conor Benn and I keep mentioning Errol Spence and you know, all these elite fighters and Garcia, etc., I can mention these as much as I want because I'm not going to fight them. I'm not ready for them. I'm probably never going to be ready for them. You know, Crawford, it'd just be an embarrassment, wouldn't it? And that rightly so. But it's as I've always thought, it's like the name association. It's like these C and B list celebrities who they hook up together and then they all go out and then they give the paparazzi a call and they say, I'm going out and I'm having some drinks here and I'm doing this and I'm seeing this person, seeing that person. They'll do anything to stay in the news. So at the moment, Conor Benn is not staying in the news with his in-the-ring performances because he's beating faded fighters. So what does he have to do? He has to attach his name. And he's already got a big name by being called Ben. He has to attach his name to anybody who's relevant at all at 147. And he'll always be able to call out or say, I want Terence Crawford, because he knows that's probably never going to happen.
Yeah.
But what he's not doing, he's not calling out Virgil Ortiz or guys like that, because he knows there's a chance that could happen. And the last thing he wants is somebody like that. He's clever. He's very clever. He'll continue to drive expensive cars and have expensive watches and live a lush lifestyle as long as he keeps doing what he's doing. So I don't have an issue with it at all. Good for him. But if he's the 5th best welterweight in the world, I've nothing to say at all about it.
Well, I don't think he is, and I think it's not earned the ranking he's got. I think it's been,
No.
It's madness, because he's not going to be ready if he has to fight one of them top dogs, is he?
No, because he's not really. I mean, he had adversity in one of his earlier fights, but that was like a long time ago at quite a low level. And Conor Benn's definitely improved. You can see he's really improved. He's dedicated. I don't have an issue with that. If I was him, I'd be operating domestically.
He's 10 fights away from where he's ranking, and he needs another 10 fights to be that ranking, doesn't he?
Yeah, listen, he might, if he hung around and fought the domestic top fighters at the moment, he might clean up. He might very well be the real deal, but he's hopped. He's jumped several levels to the point that no matter how hard he tries and how hard he works, if he jumps into a real elite level fight, he'll be absolutely exposed. He'll be massively exposed.
Yeah. All right. Ebanie Bridges, Leeds United fan. She's a world champion. Did you watch it?
I was washing my hair that night, mate. I genuinely didn't watch it. I mean, I know when her and Shannon Courtney boxed, they were like woman number 8 and woman number 7 by WBA. So
number 8 and number 9 it was.
8 and 9. So I'm assuming because, Shannon Courtney just give her a beating that she's lower top 10. So who did she fight? The number 10 fight the number 11? How does it even work? I mean, I have no idea who she boxed. I couldn't care less. And it's not because I'm anti-women's boxing, because Savannah Marshall, absolutely one of my favourite fighters right now. So it's just because she's a gimmick. She can fight a little bit. To some, she's a pretty girl. So she's a marketeer's dream. The guys like having her around because it makes them think they've got big dicks and they've got the cool as fuck. It's just, let's be honest. So they like their egos being stroked. So she gets on TV and she clearly works well. And I know Mark Tibbs, and I rate Mark Tibbs, and Jimmy Tibbs for me was just an absolute brilliant coach. I was lucky enough once to shake his hand showing Leeds. So I love Mark Tibbs and the work he's done, but he's got his hands full there. I don't know what, no pun intended, I don't know what he's going to do to improve her, because whenever I have seen her, she just runs in and throws 3,000 punches, which good for her, but she's in a very shallow talent pool and she's not even one of the cream at all.
You think it's a bittersweet pill for Mark, because people were tipping him to win a world title with Dylan, his first world champion, and he's ended up with Ebanie Bridges. It's bittersweet, isn't it? You think?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because he's a boxing man through and through, and I'm sure Mark Tibbs started working with Ebanie thinking, okay, I could do something with her. She's dedicated, committed. She's relocated.
Hey, listen, she trains hard apparently, so that's good.
Yeah. Listen, as I said with Max and myself, it's not about the level. I just find it. Look, if you look at Ebanie Bridges, I'm not digging out Ebanie Bridges. Seriously, good luck to her. Genuinely, she could be a really sweet girl, but she got hammered, didn't she, by Courtney? And then she had an absolute gift against a journeyman. So why is this girl fighting for world titles? Who set that up? Who has set that up?
It's how the sanctioning bodies work with promoters, and there aren't that many girls in the weight division and all that, is there really?
But there's clearly 7 or 8 fighters ranked above her. So there's someone out there wants to fight for a world title, but someone doesn't look that good in underwear and doesn't sell that many tickets. So they get shafted. Is that right?
Well, it's how it's going, isn't it?
What we're going to do at school? Are we going to like what kids who work hard at school just give the grade A's and the A stars to the popular kids and the kids who've got rich parents and just fuck all the rest of the kids off and work the backside off? Because that's all boxing is. Because you've just said there, Russell, she works hard. All fucking fighters work hard. Max works hard. People don't think he does. Looking at him, trust me, Max works hard. Max did a 14-hour shift yesterday in his gym. So they work hard. What do you mean you work hard? You work hard a couple of hours a day and you do your hill sprints. So fucking what's your job? You're supposed to work hard. That's not hard work for me. So yeah, I'm gonna go back on what I've just said. I couldn't care less if she works hard. She's a professional fighter. They should all work hard.
Yeah.
All of them.
Yeah. Right, mate. Fury Whyte undercard. You seen it?
I saw the list and I just thought I couldn't recite them.
Casey Romero,
Isaac
Lowe Ball, David Adelaide Ely, Tommy Fury, both Skansky. 492 he is, Tommy Fury's opponent.
But if you took away the main event, you'd think it one of Dennis's cards, wouldn't you?
So in the video, I think it'd be
Sorry, Dennis,
that video, yeah. I did say I was looking at the undercard and I thought it's no different to what Dennis puts on.
No, and that's not slagging Dennis, but Dennis isn't filling Wembley Stadium.
Bare, isn't it? The cupboards are bare, aren't they?
It's dreadful, really.
Says when they're comping Max in it after one fight, Max getting comped at DAZN shows with his missus after one fight.
I know, bless him.
Cupboards are bare, aren't they? Shall I get my?
It's pretty. Yeah, the only saving grace, and the fighters, nothing against the fighters on the bill, but you need 2 or 3 juicy fights on such a bill. I mean, I always think of the 90s. I said this before, but when Don King used to put those super shows on, and he used to have Tyson, Terry Norris, Azuma Nelson.
Hey, look what Frank Warren were putting on. Look at Full Montage. Remember that years ago?
Yeah, the Sheffield.
That was a sellout. They were banging doors to get in, man. That was chock-a-block. That was a Warren show. My 20.
That's a proper show. Yeah, that's a proper show. But this, I mean, it's bad enough, that we're in April. It's not going to be the warmest night. I know it's got the roof and stuff, but it's going to be a long night for anybody who's there. I don't know what time the main event is because sometimes they delay them a little bit for American TV, don't they? Mm-hmm. So I don't know what time the kickoff is, but it's going to be a long night with a lot of Sweet Caroline in between, honestly.
Yeah. So do you think it happens then?
Yeah, I might be wrong here. Remember, you've asked me a couple of times and I've kind of wavered, but I'm sticking to the first time you asked me, and I said I do think it happens. I think Whyte is doing the absolute, well, he's not doing anything, is he, to promote the show because Eddie's told him not to. And after Fury beats him, hopefully we have a good fight. I think Whyte he'll be just back onto the Matchroom bandwagon and taking the pay-per-views there or doing whatever he has to do. Yeah. So from his point of view, like I said before, I couldn't care less if he turns up at the press conferences as long as he turns up in the ring. But from a promoter's point of view and from people who are really invested in this fight, he has an obligation to do that. And he's only shortchanging the people who really care about the fight. I mean, I don't really care about it, but he's shortchanging a lot of people.
Do you think that he will turn up at these press conferences? Like it's getting closer.
No, I think he'll just turn up to the weigh-in. Honestly, Russell, I think he'll ride it out now.
I feel a bit cheated, me, deal that we can't see him going at it.
Well, we talked about this before, haven't we? And a lot of people said, "Oh, the press conferences will be better than the fight," and it's an unusual situation. And what's going to happen now if every Matchroom show if fighters who are not on the Matchroom contract, are they good if they don't start turning up to press conferences? What's going to happen to the sport if we? Because I'm not too bothered about this pushing, shoving, throat slashing, public workout stuff. I couldn't care less.
Crocodile, do you remember him? Mike Tyson's on.
Oh, the crocodile, yeah. Yeah, I was there at the MEN when Tyson fought James Francis. But is this what we're going to do now? Everyone's not going to play out now because
he
didn't
get his mate, him Crocodile.
Really? It was an absolute.
His mate.
He had the little shit, the black shades, didn't he? The goggles and stuff, and
that's and everything. Bowler hat and yeah, get that man.
Mike Tyson at that stage of his career really was surrounded by some.
He used to come out to that Welcome to the Terror Dome, didn't he?
Yeah, it was an eerie walking, but he was surrounded by some absolute muppets, wasn't he? Late in his career, was Tyson. Absolute mugs. None of them were boxing then.
None of them were surrounded by dossers, mate.
Absolutely.
But so you reckon it's going to happen then? Well, let's hope it does. And what about Big Meech against Usyk? I mean, it's 6 months tomorrow since they activated the rematch clause, and we've still not got a date, have we?
I just
they
can't
keep saying
see.
It's the next Tuesday.
Yeah,
it's just going on, and there's no out there, is there?
We've heard this, Russell, haven't we? We heard this with Fury and Joshua.
It's just lip service. They're great at it, aren't they?
Yeah, history repeats itself. So I've probably seen about 3 or 4 Eddie Hearn interviews in the last 18 months. Ever since the Fury Joshua fight fell through, I just can't listen to him because I can't take it seriously. What he says is he's an absolute brilliant promoter because people still watch him and people still believe him. So he must be fantastic. Eddie's got to be because people. Oh
my God, man! No, but the whoppers are creeping out now, though, aren't they?
Oh,
and listen, the bluff and counter bluff and innuendos and oh my God, man! I wonder what the real lives are like if this is what. I
wonder what the Marvin Haglers had made of this. You know, if Marvin Hagler got his shot against Alan Minter in 1980. If he'd have had some dickhead in his ear saying, don't take the fight against Minter, Marvin, you need a 40% split, or don't do this, or you walk out to the ring first, or I wonder what Marvin Hagler, dyed in the wool, blue collar fighter would have made of today, to this shit today, what's going on, and promoters with bigger egos than fighters, and promoters get more camera time than fighters. I do sometimes sit and I think, what would Marvin Hagler have made of this? Yeah. Fighters not fighting each other, and what a shower of shite.
Yeah, it's madness, isn't it? It's utter madness. Do you think that, like back in the day, that kids kind of went to 20-0, and then they were kind of like let off a leash, but they'd had tests up to then? And you think now we've got fighters padding records out, really padding them, getting to 15, 16-0, and then they sort of go off into wilderness. I don't know, what do you think?
I know quite a few, actually. I won't mention names, but I know kids who are 14, 15 and 16-0, localish kids who COVID really crippled their careers to some extent, that they just didn't box for 2 years because there weren't huge ticket sellers or there weren't huge names.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this, and I was thinking, why aren't these fighters just fighting each other? Because do you know what? You've had 2 years downtime. I know it's not quite answering the exact question you asked, but you've had 2 years downtime. COVID's stalled your career. So you can't be just waiting around for the phone to ring. You can't be fighting fucking guys who are 6 and 50 anymore. Why aren't these guys now just stepping up and trading off these effectively empty, unbeaten records against each other and demanding opportunities? Do you know what? Nobody should box for nothing. But everybody's waiting for that perfect offer, for that perfect platform, for that perfect wage and that salary. And that call's not coming. At what point are these fighters going to say, "Do you know what? We should get something going here. Let's just take a pay cut, do this, do what, and put them on Frank Warren's show instead of the shite that he's putting on." Warren must have fighters who are signed with him, you know, get 3 or 4 kids at the same weight who are at a similar stage of the career. Put them in with each other. Why not?
Do you feel that too many fighters just want to not have any rivalries and just fight trash to get to, you know, a protector record for a few years and that, you know, 15, 16 and that and stuff like that?
Definitely.
And not forget about and the forgetting them fights that they can have when they're like 8-0 with a local rival, you know, for a good belt and stuff like that. They're too busy getting that O padded and waiting for knock from money fights, but they're not ready for them. Do you feel?
Yeah. Well, that's exactly what they should be doing, because Mark Bateson had a really good fight on his one of his recent cards, and he did exactly what I've just talked about. So Justin Newell and James First were both unbeaten kids. Both of those, I hope they don't mind me saying, I know Justin well. They've just been on ice for 2 years. So they come straight out of a pandemic and they've fought each other for Central Area title, all right, produced a spectacular knockout. But the point is, we know now, don't we? You know, we know who's got the, if you like, who's got the potential out of those two, or maybe not, but they've taken a risk. And Justin Newell got beat. That won't harm him at all. That'll probably make him more lucrative and more matchable now. Instead of being 14, 15 and 0, he's got a loss on his record. It'll make him probably easier to match. But why aren't more people doing that? So Mark Bateson had the idea, well, I'll just put them in against each other. Let the cream rise. And that's what I think promoters should be doing. And there's too many kids, like you've just said, the 15 and 0, 16 and 0, 17 and 0. You see them on social media, they've got about 10 sponsors. And it's like, just step up. I said, let them off the lead. You can either fight or you can't. And you know what? If you can't fight, that's not the biggest deal in the world, because it just means you're not going to get where you want to be anyway.
Do you think that they think that a lot could be said for the board being pressured into making kids fight for area belts, and then them going and making them fight for the English and making them do it? But you've got to fight, you've got to go this route and keep it traditional.
One of the things I would do, if I was on the board of control, one of the things that I would do, because the board have to ultimately sanction everything, don't they? You know, they'll say, oh, it's sanctioned by the WBO, by the IBF, but the board for fights in the UK have to sanction fights. I'd be boycotting some of these lesser belts, and I'd be doing exactly what you've just said. You see, while there's a WBF European or an IBO Intercontinental or a whatever.
WBO European.
Fucking, I mean,
IBF European.
Have you ever heard anything like that in your life? So
IBF European. They're from no
World Organization governing a European continent.
An American governing body governing a European.
You just never heard anything like it, have you? So if I were the board of control, I'd be saying, stop, we're going to clean boxing up. And if we're going to clean it up in this country, I'd be saying to the Eddie Earns and Frank Warrens, you can stop putting these dog shit fights on. I'd be taking licenses off at least 300-400 people who are not competent enough to fight. Honestly, they're not. These kids out there who it's not a great level. That's not their fault. Everybody who dreams of being a professional. I'd be reducing the numbers, and I'd be reducing the number of all these crap belts. And then what are kids going to do if they don't have opportunities on TV? They're going to start to fight each other for the Central Area title, like I've just said with Justin Newell, James First. Get these kids to fight each other. They're all signed up to bloody MTK and everybody else sat on the sidelines. Just be independent, take a chance and find out if you're any good. But the board of control have to really step up and start running this sport how it's supposed to be run. And I will be talking to promoters and saying, you're not putting these you're bringing these imports over. They're absolutely horrendous. You've got these journeymen who's 32, 0 and 32. You've got to take the licenses off them. You've got to protect them from themselves. And just like the UFC, and I'm fully aware that the UFC is an organization. It's not a sport. MMA is a sport. But just like the UFC, they have quality, don't they? Yeah. They don't have 100 belts. They have quality fighters on contract, and they get quality fights. And look, how do you start to clean the sport up? I'll tell you how you start to clean the sport up. You start with the people who regulate it. If you're going to clean a country up, you start with the government, don't you? Yeah. So you start with the people who regulate boxing. They're all in the 60s and 70s. They're all really guys with the past it. The past it. You need to get some businessmen in, some bright people in, people who are passionate about boxing, people who are clever, people who are not afraid to be outspoken, people like Simon Jordan. Get a guy like him in boxing. Let him rip the guts out of the border control, bring some new people in, refresh it, create new systems, create new legislation, and just start from the ground up. It's not that hard. You know, businesses change all the time. You know, organizations change all the time, and boxing has to change. And it's, if you think about it, last point. If we still have the same government now that we had for 50 years, we had exactly the same people and there were no elections, then the government, even people could say that they do what they want now, but the government could do whatever they wanted because they're unregulated and there's no opposition, which you could argue the government don't have an opposition as it stands. So the border control have no opposition. They're self-regulated, so they can do what they want. They can appoint who they want. And that's the problem. There's no healthy competition. And this is what happens. You've got an autocracy, and it's just, it needs, like you've said, it needs draining. The swamp needs draining, as far as I'm concerned. And we just need somebody who's prominent, someone like a Simon Jordan, who's well respected and well known and prominent, to get some backing to challenge these guys, because it needs challenging, and it starts with the people who run it. Simple as that. I'm not going to mention names. I always say this because I think I'm not on here to offend anybody, but I'm not on here to cause trouble with people who I know. I know a couple of kids who have got pro licenses. Yeah, people say, well, Max is one of them. I'm not talking about Max. I know a couple of kids who have got pro licenses. They absolutely should not have pro licenses. They're very, very, very poor level. And I'm not knocking them at all. I didn't turn professional because I didn't think I was good enough. Certainly a level above some of the pros when I was boxing that I'm seeing now. So some of these kids are going to get hurt. Some of these kids are going to get hurt because they're not competent enough. So who's licensing these people? Who's giving these kids licenses? Who's matching them? When they get beat time and time again, who's continuing to match them? The border control. It's fucking rotten, mate, honestly. Rotten.
Moving on then from them. I was thinking about some other day, and then I started watching Pernell Whitaker, right, boxing. Yeah. And I was thinking, do we have anybody in this country that fights in the pocket like he can?
It was just so.
Does anybody even teach it?
Right, you've hit upon something there, and this is, you know, whenever you send me a message and say, we'll have a chat, let's have a catch up, Russell. You know, I've been working, and I just sit for 5 minutes before you call me, and I think anything that, you know, Russell asked me some really challenging questions, and is anything I want to bring up. We must have been on the same wavelength, because I've got this beamer bonnet about the 2016, and this is just something I'm going to throw out there. I'm not saying I'm right. I like to think just laterally at times. So the 2016 Olympic squad, okay, you got Nicola Adams, we had Savannah Marshall, Galal Yafai, you know, Boatse, Kez Ashfrak, Josh Kelly, Joe Joyce, Lawrence Okoli. I'm not going to talk about the 80s and other eras, but we've got some really talented, world-class amateurs amongst that collection there, yeah. Right? Other than, someone's going to say Lawrence Okoli, please, if you've seen the level he's fighting at, please don't. Other than Savannah Marshall, right? Who are we seeing? And this is to all you coaches out there. Who have we seen in that group of 2016 Olympians really develop before our eyes? So Pernell Whitaker, you mentioned Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker won he was world amateur champion, won the Pan Am Championships, 84 gold medal in Los Angeles. But Whittaker wasn't that fighter who would work in the pocket as an amateur. He was almost like mid-range to long-range sharpshooter from the outside. So Whittaker then, like a lot of the Olympians, they work with the Bentons and the Duvers and all these guys. Why are we not seeing that 2016 class develop as fighters before our eyes? Why are we not seeing them develop into absolute brilliant, outstanding world champions? So the only one, and I'm not saying this because it's your show and he's a mate of yours, the only one, Cordina's a bit special, but he's not active. Savannah Marshall's the only one, what my eyes are telling me, has developed from an amateur, quite gangly and ungainly and quite raw.
She's very regimented, Savannah, in her
She's
training.
absolutely. So Peter Fury.
First in James, last one out.
Yeah. So Peter Fury has done an amazing job with her. Let's just call it out as a coach. He's got somebody who didn't medal in the Olympics. He's got somebody who is absolutely transformed into the professional game and he's brought her through, if you like.
She world amateur gold though, didn't she, as well?
She did. She was brilliant, wasn't she? Oh yeah, absolute pedigree. But Peter Fury's done what he should have done with someone of that pedigree and he's brought her through and developed her. If we look at the rest of I'm not knocking this group of fighters. So you look at, Anthony Fowler. I mean, Josh
Kelly. Favourite, wasn't he, at Olympics, wasn't he?
Yeah, favourite to win, Josh Kelly, these guys. So is it the fighters? Because these guys, most of those people who turned over, McCormack stayed amateur, but most of that class who turned over, they've either not had that many fights or the old versions of like Coley's got the WBO belt. And it's because you mentioned Whittaker. I know I'm answering this a long way, I always do, but why are the coaches not developing these into absolute stars? As a coach, I watch, technically that's my thing, that's always my bag. So when I see a fighter over the years, you can see what they're bringing to themselves, the changes they're making, but you can also see that development from the amateur style and the amateur format over to the pros. And I've seen Peter Fury do such a brilliant job with Savannah Marshall. Where's the rest of the development? I mean, Boazzi doesn't look that much better to me than when his first couple of years as a pro. He's a competent fighter. People say, oh, he's this, he's that. He hasn't won anything yet.
I think Cardi eats him up, doesn't he?
Yeah, he hasn't done anything yet. So Kez Ashfrak, local lad from Leeds, not developed. He's 10-1 now. He's not boxing over a year. What is happening to these kids? So if you've got the cream, because you always talk about he's talking about Ben Davis and people fall on your lap. And then I always talk about coaching and say, coaching's not someone falling on your lap who's got that pedigree. Coaching's getting somebody who probably wins fights they shouldn't win. And, they overachieve in the professional ranks and the grow and grow and grow. I'm not seeing any development at all from that 2016 GB squad. There's a couple of good kids in there. Cordina's a good kid. But if you look at Joe Joyce, I mean, he's just a bit stronger and a bit fitter, but he's not picking up the subtleties or the nuances of professional boxing. So I'm asking the question, I'm not giving the answer. Is it down to the coaching? Because what was the difference between previous Olympians, like some of these Americans you talk about, Whittaker fighting in the pocket? What was the difference between those guys and the guys of today? And I would argue it's the teachers. They had the teachers. Even though it was an anticlimax in the end, Riddick Bowe had his Eddie Futch, didn't he? Eddie Futch massively transformed Riddick Bowe from the
Riddick Bowe could fight in the pocket, couldn't he?
Absolutely, Bowe could fight inside, and that's he was a really good inside fighter. And if you look at even like Kennedy McKinney and Ray Mercer, just solid fighters, but I'm sorry, it's just, I'd be asking questions of that 2016 squad. It's just a bean in my bonnet I've got about 6 years on. Who's the standout name from the 2016 squad?
Savannah. Joe Joyce, maybe.
What, 13-0, and he's just beat domestic level Daniel Dubois. Is that
Coley?
I thought the guys he beat looked like they'd been doing the night shift in the bed factory. Honestly, I thought they were pretty. It wasn't Dwight Mohammed Cowie, was it, who Holyfield beat, or even when I look at I'm not a David Hay fan, but look at David Hay. Look at the job that Adam Booth did with David Hay, and when he did win the world, he cleaned up at cruiserweight, didn't he? It was fucking phenomenal at cruiserweight. Was David Hay? Coley just it hurts my eyes when I watch him.
Yeah.
So I think we've got to be asking questions about that. 6 years on, almost 6 years on, we don't have a big star from that squad.
Holyfield were fighting Mohammed Whyte over 15 rounds after 2 years after Olympics, wasn't he?
Unbelievable, unbelievable. And it's just not happening, is it? 4 years on, Ali, the great, incomparable Ali. But Whittaker, 2-3 years on, was fighting the likes of Roger Mayweather and then fighting Jose Luis Ramirez. What are these guys? Is it the structure of boxing? Are they not getting taught the right things? Why are these guys not stars right now? Because other than Savannah Marshall, who's kind of becoming a star, these guys are not stars, Russell. They're not accomplished, complete professionals, are they? If you put it like that.
You think somebody like a Teddy Atlas could have straightened a lot of them out? Do you rate him, Teddy Atlas?
He didn't take any shit, did he? And he might not have had some of the technical eye of maybe like a George Benton or a Futcher or an ourself. Maybe did, maybe didn't. I'd had to see more of his work. But he certainly was a disciplinarian and he knew boxing. He was massively experienced and he didn't take shit. But he didn't just take shit from the fighters. He didn't take shit from the managers or anybody involved. I just think it's maybe the pace has slowed down. But if I was Joe Joyce now, I'd be like, what is he, 36? Where's my career going? And I'd be taking control of my career. I'd be saying to my management, what are you fucking doing with my career? I've not boxed for 8-9 months again. You're in talks with Joseph Parker. I don't want you in talks with anybody. I want you to be out every 2 months, every 3 months. What are you doing with my career? But they're all seemingly quite happy, aren't they, to just coast, sit there. To your earlier point, sit there.
He's number one ranked, isn't he, Big Joe?
Yeah, so he just sat on his ranking, and it's just like it just disappoints me, mate. I'm a round peg in a square hole with boxing these days, and I come on here and I try and be optimistic. There's so many brilliant things like Savannah Marshall's performance. The opposition wasn't much. I'm not going to say it was, but Lee Wood, brilliant, just absolutely fantastic. Jordan Gill, great performance from the fighter and coach. We've got to give people credit, but there's just so much not happening right now. I can't help going back to an era because it proves the point. I think of the middleweight division in the 80s. Hagler was at the top of the middleweight division, where everybody else just boxed each other. James Kinchin, Roldan, Frank Fletcher, James Green, Hamshot. They all fought each other, continued to fight each other, and one of them got lost. 2 of them got lost. So what? It wasn't the end of the world. But everybody now is just clinging on. Like, talking about Devon Haney saying, I want to be an all-time great. And it's like, you're clinging on to just your unbeaten record. And
he got his belt via an email, didn't he?
Should have got it off Amazon, it being cheaper, wouldn't it? You know what I mean? It's just.
What do you think to Josh Warrington at the moment?
Oh, I know Josh. I know his dad. I hope Josh, first of all, the hard fights out that he's having. The physical hard fights, and Josh trains hard. I've seen Josh train. He was in a gym where I was for 2 years, 3 years, and Josh trains at a massive intensity, like ridiculous intensity. Even like fighters ease into camp and they just do a few runs. Josh starts camp and he fucking smashes the bag, spars. He trains with ridiculous intensity. So where we want him to go as a fan, as boxing fans, we want him to put right the wrong with Lara. But Josh's management, I think Josh, by the way, personally would want to put right the wrong. But Josh's management and his dad would want to do the safest thing for him, would be to get the most money for the least risk and get out of boxing. And as I've said before, I sit right on the fence, because if it was my son, I'd want him to get out in one piece and make as much money as he can, because no one will give a fuck about Josh Warrington in 20 years' time if he's got CTE and he's slurring his words and he's struggling, you know, with kidneys and stuff. And, you know, did you see him again with his broken jaw after that fight? That's quite, for me, hard to watch. And I'm not close to Josh like I used to be, but that's quite hard to watch. And equally, that must be hard for Natasha, his wife, to watch, to see that. It's the second, third time now we've seen him in a short period of time looking like he's been in a train wreck.
You've got to fight that Lara, though, for me, mate. You've got to fight him. Put it right. And be an all-time great. It's
one of those, isn't it? Lara could be his boogeyman, like Junior Jones was Barrera's boogeyman. He turned him over twice, didn't he? And Josh will turn around and say, well, I boxed him again. Russell, what do you want me to do? I've been in with him again. But to your point and to the general public, but it was inconclusive. So the boxing fans, but yeah, me personally, I have to be honest, the fan in me always wants to see the great fights. I've just been talking about great fights and great fighters, but when you're closer to a situation, it's always a little bit difficult. But personally, if you're going to put a gun to my head, I think I wouldn't want to leave the sport with question marks.
Yeah,
that's the best, most diplomatic way I can put it, knowing Josh and knowing Sean and knowing Nikki.
Yeah. Okay then. Well, listen, thanks for coming on. We've had a good chat, haven't we?
Absolutely, mate. As always, it always comes across sometimes as negative, but I think we're really that way. And we both love boxing, mate. We both think it's a great sport, but I do believe, just to finish off, I get tired when I hear people say boxing's booming and boxing's healthier. And it's ever been. And you people who truly believe that, you're delusional. You're either casuals or delusional or stupid.
Yeah.
Because this boxing right now is in a really tough position. I genuinely believe it. The big fights are big, right? You're going to hear the commentary. I'll wind down, Russell, but you're going to hear the commentary at Wembley. There'll be 94,000 people there. You're going to hear the commentary people saying boxing's dead. Look at Wembley, Tyson Fury's you're going to hear a lot. But what you're not seeing is the same night, there'll be 15 small hall shows on their ass doing nothing. Fighters fighting for free. It's like the rich and the poor. There's too much of a bigger gap. So boxing is not booming. Boxing is booming financially for the top 1 or 2% in the sport. And for the rest of the sport, it's on its ass. And for the fans, the true fans who really want to see the best fights, it's a massively unsatisfying sport right now, and it has been for about 5 years.
Yeah. Right. And on that note,
on that dour note,
all right then.
it could be worse, mate.
I know.
Joshua might beat Usyk and Dillian might beat Fury, and then you're gonna have to talk about that for the next 6 months. And Eddie's gonna be.
It could be even worse. We could both be doing a white collar on a Dennis ticket deal in a car park.
I've been up bag lately, Dennis. I might give you a call, mate. I might have to make a comeback. I'm sure board would license me anyway. I'm riddled with arthritis. I've got bad eyesight, and I've got all kinds of issues with my spine. They'd still give me a fucking license.
All right, mate. Listen, you take care, mate.
Okay, Russell.
Bye. Bye.
Cheers, pal.
Well, we're funny that, wasn't it? We always like to have a bit of a joke at end, so I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to hit the feather now, so peace out.
Pop, pop, bang! On the floor. End of. Give me them belts back where you stole them, you bum. And that's it.